What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Kevin Ramos for the $10 donation via the PayPal. He says, what if Dominique Wilkins wanted to play for Utah in 1982 and spent his prime with Stockton and Malone? Well, for those of you who don't know about this, Dominique Wilkins was actually drafted by the Utah Jazz in 1982, right? And the general manager and head coach of the team, Frank Layden, wanted Dominique Wilkins to play for them. The problem was, amongst other problems with Dominique when it comes to playing for the Utah Jazz, he wanted Dominique to play at the four. Now, back then, there really wasn't stretch bigs, like that. That's not what you were really expected to do. Back then, you were expected to be a post player. Now, mind you, Dominique Wilkins is 6'7", in shoes, maybe 6'8", 210, 215. And, he's not a guy that's going to just naturally bulk up to 240, 250. That's just not his body type, nor was he a post player. He was a mid-range, sort of semi-perimeter guy. You know what I'm saying? Like that was his game. Sure, he could, periodically, dunk on the motherfucker from the free throw line or drive to the basket and have some tremendous highlight reel plays in the post or inside, but he wasn't the post guy. He wasn't the strongest rebounder. He was not a great defender. He was not a shot blocker. He was not a rim protector. So that's not his game. So when you have a guy there already at Adrian Dantley who's at the three, that's a great player, but Dominique wasn't really a good fit for that team. Also, another thing that people have to take into account is that the Utah Jazz, as a franchise, were struggling. Now, just, I believe, 3 years earlier, they had moved from New Orleans, which is why they were called the Jazz. Some people are like, well, why are they called the Jazz? They're in Utah. Well, because it used to be the New Orleans Jazz. They never changed the nickname of the team to fit Utah. What would it be, the Utah Mormons? But anyway, they were struggling in Utah to the point where it looked like they were going to have to eventually relocate again. So the trade to Atlanta, which was a very lopsided trade, I think they traded, if I remember correctly, Cash, Dominique Wilkins, and Freeman Williams to Atlanta Hawks for some players. I forgot what it was. But what they got back financially for that trade saved the Utah Jazz. It saved them. Also, Dominique did not want to play in Utah. I mean, culturally, it was the fit, along with the fact that, he didn't want to play power forward. So to reiterate that, he really wanted to play in Georgia. He played college in Georgia, I think the Georgia Bulldogs, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted to stay in that area. And Hank Aaron, the baseball legend, was essential in getting Ted Turner, who owned the Atlanta Hawks at that time, to acquire Dominique Wilkins, right? And we all know the rest is history. Dominique was individually brilliant with the Atlanta Hawks. Although they never went to an NBA Finals, won a championship, they did ultimately have some playoff success. Now, in this scenario, I guess you're gonna have to assume that Dominique has a change of heart and he wants to play in Utah. I don't see him playing power forward. At best, I guess what they're gonna have to do is have Dominique play at shooting guard, which really isn't his strongest position to play because he's not the greatest ball handler. So I can see him turn the ball over quite a bit. But I guess you have to play small forward for a while. I mean, excuse me, shooting guard. Hopefully, with these two stars on this team, it's enough to get them into the playoffs at least. And hopefully, to make this storyline make sense, the Utah Jazz start actually selling as far as a team on the road, but more importantly, at Utah, so that the franchise stays afloat. Then you could look at the trajectory of Dominique Wilkins and say, well, okay, Adrian Dantley, he's becoming a bit of a detriment to the front office. He doesn't play defense. He's seen as a selfish guy. His teammates kind of got a little, some issues with him as well. They move Adrian Dantley, keep Dominique Wilkins, and still get Stockton and Malone. Now the team makes more sense. And now you actually have a team that's kind of, what I'm saying, a force. You have Mark Eaton, the shot blocker. You got Thurl Bailey, who was a pretty good player, right? People forget about Thurl Bailey. He was giving you 16, 18 points a game. Dominique Wilkins, in this situation, I still think he can give you 25 a game. Uh, then you have John Stockton at the point. Then you have Daryl Griffin at shooting guard. And then when you acquire Karl Malone, he replaces Thurl Bailey in the starting lineup. And now you have a great fucking team. Now you have a team with the addition of Dominique Wilkins. Let me ask you guys a question. If the Utah Jazz were able to push the 88 Showtime Lakers to 7 games as they were, do you think with Dominique Wilkins they could have upsetted them motherfuckers? That's not a far-fetched assumption. It's very possible, right? So maybe the curve with the Utah Jazz, as far as the winning, starts a lot sooner. Instead of them making the conference finals by 92 or 93, they'll be in the conference finals by 88. Now, who will they have faced? The Detroit Pistons? Are they ready for that type of physicality? Um, Maybe being at that stage that early, they're not mentally prepared for that. The Utah Jazz, and maybe they underperform in the finals and lose 4 games to 1 or 4 games to 2 or something. I could see that happening. But if you keep that core together and they mature, I could see Utah winning a couple of championships, especially as the Showtime Lakers age, the Boston Celtics age, and as the Detroit Pistons, I don't want to say they aged, but injuries kind of took a toll on them. By 91, 92, if that team is competing against the Chicago Bulls, and you got Dominique Wilkins, who's tearing Pippen ass up 101. Now, Mike's going to be Michael Jordan, but Stockton's going to kill Paxson. Karl Malone historically has had good games against the Chicago Bulls, although he's had some bad games. The Bulls don't have a strong center. Mark Eaton is declining, but he's still a shot blocker. He's still going to give you like 7 points, 2 blocks a game at that point. Um, I think at that time they also had Jeff Malone and like I said, Daryl Griffin, but they also had Jeff Malone. So I could see Utah beating Chicago, man. What they could, I could see them winning. I could definitely see them winning at least one championship, probably two, if they stayed together. And they're gonna have to re-up after Malone and Mark Eaton and some of those other cats retire or get move on as they get older. But I could see them winning. I could see that team being successful. The problem is, I just think that Karl Malone and John Stockton, their personalities fit Utah. Karl Malone's a country boy, like the fish and all that. It's just hard for me to see Dominique Wilkins culturally fitting into the Utah Jazz area. You know what I'm saying? But for the sake of argument, if he just adjusts to life there and he just focuses on basketball and maybe might meet the right woman, you know, meet some socially acceptable sister. I don't know, man. But yeah, I could see that team winning a couple championships. Um, because as we know, Stockton Malone, they stayed healthy for a long period of time. I think the better question is, does this extend Dominique Wilkins' career a little bit more? Does he suffer the same knee injury or Achilles injury, I should say, in early '92, or does that get postponed a little bit more? Does his prime get stretched out enough? But the Western Conference definitely gets much more competitive in the '90s. So I think if they're going to win a championship, it's going to have to be 90, 91 into '92. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.